I'm joined now by the Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. Alan Mendoza, who joins me now. Dr. Mendoza, welcome to the show. Always a delight to have your company. Something of a mystery, isn't it, that it was leaked to the press, briefed to the press. This was China. This was the Chinese Communist Party, and yet Grant Shapps stopped well short. He said it was a malign foreign impact. Wouldn't rule out a foreign country, a state-endorsed involvement, but stayed shy of actually fingering the Chinese. What's your take on that?
Well, I think the official line on this is that investigations take a long time before we can reveal who's actually behind things. Note, for example, that the 2021 breaches of the Electoral Commission of MPs' emails took 2 years to come to fruition before the government was comfortable to say it was China. But clearly they know it's China, because clearly they briefed it was China. So we're fully aware of what it's likely to be and who's likely to be behind it. And therefore I think I have some sympathy for John Healey's position to say, if you in this way, shouldn't we being a little bit more circumspect about, getting out there and saying who's really responsible, even if we then caveat that by saying we don't have the final results, but we know whose modus operandi this is. It's you, Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, because clearly, Alan, if Grant Shapps knew that it wasn't the Chinese, he would say this wasn't the Chinese, these leaks are simply untrue. As you say, most likely this has been briefed to be the Chinese, and yet we have this tap dance, this shadow box of who actually is responsible. My question is quite simple. Does this show that Britain is toothless to this? We know who's doing it, but we're afraid to point it out in case it ruffles feathers.
Well, I think there's certainly some truth to that, and we've seen that softly approached so many times now with the numerous breaches that China has done, whether it is on hacking, whether it is on industrial espionage, whether it is on any other of the many breaches that China is engaged in. Our response has been to say, well, we know you've done a bad thing, but we're going to let it pass, frankly, because we're so worried about the impact of trade and economics on saying something. But that's a wrong approach to take. Right now, China is in an economic slump, a slowdown of historic proportions. They need trade as much, if not more so, than we do right now. The idea that we're going to get punished for calling out Chinese bad behaviour is really very sort of old-fashioned thinking, very frightened thinking. And more so, were we to come together with a coalition of other countries who've similarly been affected. It's not just us. There are cases every month of countries being hacked by China in various ways. If we all came together and said, at this particular point in time, enough is enough, I think China would listen.